Good morning. My name's Kathleen Roberts, and as you will notice, Jake is not here today. But because this is being recorded, I will let you know that today is Jake's 31st birthday. So he and Olivia are off celebrating it. So since this is being recorded and Jake will see it, on the count of 3, let's all wish Jake a happy birthday. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday, Jake! Great, thank you. So that clip that we just watched was from one of Oprah's Super Soul Sunday talks with religious scholar and former Catholic nun and writer Karen Armstrong, who I think has come up with one of my favorite quotes, and that the biblical God is a starter kit. When I heard that, I said, isn't that brilliant? How amazing is that? Can you imagine if any religious leader would say to the children in Sunday school or in catechism or to their congregants, we don't know what God is because God is beyond concepts and meaning. But here are a few ideas to get you started. Don't worry. Your own intuition and experiences will open up new ideas for you. What a difference that could have made in many of our lives. I mean, certainly in mine, being raised in the 1950s Roman Catholic Church. But today's topic is, and here's my little, all right, we have more technology to do. Today's topic, I need applause for that, thank you. What does the word God, or that concept, that idea, mean to you? Fortunately, here at Aldea, there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. And really, as we saw with Karen Armstrong, there isn't any way except through our own feelings, beliefs, experiences to try and verbalize what that means to us. It's a complicated question to answer, pretty impossible, because this is an idea and not a concrete thing. And so we can only use our language to describe those experiences, beliefs, and feelings. But what a powerful subject. Not only over the centuries has this idea brought people together in many, many varied communities and been the subject of thousands of books, it has also been the impetus for countless wars and unimaginable human suffering. And we see that still today. So it is a powerful, powerful subject. Most of us were raised in a religious environment that did tell us what God was, that defined that told us that God was a he, and everything that we had to do in order to please this rather emotionally unstable daddy God. I was thinking about the stock market, that if you're in the stock market, there's always this anxiety. Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? How can I make it right? And I thought, oh yeah, that was kind of like the God that I was raised with, where we were never quite sure if we were doing it right. But whatever tradition we came from, we were probably taught that tradition's that interpretation of God was the only one. It was the right one. And it might have been hard for us to let go of that and embark on our own journeys. Or you might have tossed the whole shebang out the window, as I did in my 20s. My Catholic upbringing and indoctrination felt so oppressive to me that I wanted to have nothing to do with it for a long time. And should anyone dare mention organized religion to me when I was in my 20s, fire would come streaming out in my rage. However, there was a longing. I never lost that longing for something beyond this concrete world. And fortunately, there were many wise and thoughtful people who helped me open the doors of my own exploration into this longing and beyond the narrow childhood definitions I was given to help me articulate and give shape to some of my experiences. I sometimes describe my ongoing spiritual journey as a lifelong cooking experiment. I've thrown lots of things into the pot, stir it around, simmer it for a few years or so, and then give it a taste and say, well, how does this fit? How does this feel? How does this? And then you might say, I need a dash of Buddhism. And what about those Christian mystics? Let's throw in a few of those too. So it's a lifelong, ongoing experiment. And I hope today that we'll be able to express some of the ideas that we have felt about this word, despite our human limitations. So before I invite our panel up, we're going to have a panel of 3 Aldeans to help with this discussion. I will show you some quotes from some interesting people that illustrate the impossibility of nailing down a definition of God in any concrete way. Boop, boop, boop. Oh, no, wrong way.
I can't see any one of these faiths is superior to any of the others.
No. Lori, help. There. So here, just to recap that Karen Armstrong video that we saw, to say that the biblical God as a starter kit really opens up this world of freedom for ourselves and our creativity and our imagination. She says it can start you off into transcendence, going beyond what can be spoken or described. I seem to be not doing this right.
You're doing fine. You're good.
So I need Lori. Lori, help. Each faith has its own insight and genius. And this is something that I wish could be just broadcast worldwide to say, don't you get it? Each faith has its insights and genius. So just let it be. When we say God, we really don't know what we're talking about. And that God is being itself. God is not a being, God is being itself. So, as you'll see in some of these quotes, if we acknowledge that when we speak about God, we really don't know what we're talking about, it opens up a kind of magical world of poetic imagination, metaphor, and mysticism. And this is a quote by Barry Taylor. And if you don't know, Barry Taylor was once a star roadie for AC/DC before he became a priest. His conversion to Christianity began on the Highway to Hell tour. How perfect is that? I love it. AC/DC's trip to the United States in 1979. Afterwards, he enrolled in a seminary and became an Episcopal priest. Got a PhD in pop culture and theology. I know. Sounds like a joke, but it's not. So what he says is God is the name of the blanket we throw over mystery to give it shape. And I thought, oh my gosh, yes, we have to try and call it something with this mystery that we can't define. So we throw this blanket over it and then go, oh, I see what it is. It reminds me of the story about the blind men and the elephant, that were all standing around touching different parts of the elephant to say, oh, I know what this is. I know what this is. And that's kind of what we do. Okay, next slide, please. Along similar lines, Albert Einstein said, try and penetrate with our limited means the secrets of nature, and you will find that behind all of the discernible concatenations, there remains something subtle, intangible, and inexplicable. Veneration for this force, beyond anything that we can comprehend, is my religion. Very beautiful and powerful, and I had to look up, of course, what concatenations there may and what that means is a series of interconnected things or events. So you could also probably read that and put connections in place of the word concatenations. But there remains, no matter how we try and pick it apart or define it, there remains something subtle, intangible, and inexplicable. And that is the mystery that then we throw our blanket over. Okay, next slide. In the film we watched about Ram Dass a few weeks ago, he said that God is pure consciousness. Pure consciousness. And in Ram Dass's younger years, he defined God in, really kind of more lengthy ways. But the film, this was at the end of his life, and all he said was God is pure consciousness. Another Indian mystic, Ram Keir, says a God defined is a God confined. Now, if anyone is a fan of Rumi's poetry or the poetry of the Sufi mystics, you'll see that a lot of them find their expression in this kind of ecstatic poetry about the divine, not defining it, but just talking about their own experience of ecstasy, and also the mystery. And this quote from Rumi, I searched for God and found only myself. I searched for myself and found only God. Beautiful, and there isn't any place. There isn't any place that God is. There isn't any place that God isn't. And then Saint Hildegard of Bingen, who was an 11th century Benedictine abbess and saint, said, I am a feather on the breath of God. Lovely, beautiful metaphor. So these are just a few of the hundreds, if not thousands, of ways people attempt to describe their experience of a name for what is essentially unnameable. But we will try and do our best to talk about our experiences and then have you do that as well. And now I'd like to introduce our Aldea panel, where we'll kind of engage in just our own expressions of this. Mary Engle, Tarell Lewis, and Glenn Kagan, whom I'm sure you all know. And so let me see. Tarell, I think I'll start with you. If you would like to just say whatever you feel about that word, that concept, or your experiences of it.
Thank you, Kathleen. Can you hear me?
Yes. Oh.
You guys actually hold the microphones? It's just
Here, you can take it off of this. There you go.
All right. Thank you. Can you hear me? There you go. All right. Well, thank you, Kathleen, for having me today. Thank you, Aldea. I love Aldea. And I also love fantasy football. So when you announced that today or this past week, I just knew that I'm in the right place. So thank you. But actually, I do have I put together some words on today's message. And I believe that God is pure existence or beingness or consciousness. And the apparent veiling of the face of God is in us. An English philosopher of non-duality by the name of Rupert Spira speaks clearly of this. He says, "It's our thoughts and feelings and judgments and preferences and ideas that make it almost impossible for us to see the face of God in those people, objects, or activities that coincide with our conditioning. It make it almost impossible for us to see the face of God in those people, objects, activities that don't coincide with our conditioning." That's a quote by Rupert Spira. In other words, what we are able to see the face of God in is colored by our preferences, our likes or dislikes, our attitudes, etc. He invites us to think more clinically about God, by which he means to see that everything there is exists or is beingness or consciousness. If you have a thought, that thought exists. The sound of my voice right now exists. The chair that you are sitting on right now exists. The sensation on your feet on the ground or the floor exists. Everything there is exists. He goes on to say that existence is the one thing that is shared by everything and everyone. So an even deeper question to ask is, what is existence? What is that is shared by everyone and everything? Now imagine taking existence away from a thought, from a person, from a feeling. What would remain? What would remain? Nothing. Could it be that existence is what is meant by God? That which is shared equally by all things, by all people, and that which, when taken away, turns out to be the entirety of that object. In other words, he is trying to direct us towards a concept of God that is not just in line with our personal feelings and preferences and conditioning. On my personal journey within God, I can use one word to sum up my greatest lesson so far. That word is acceptance. The acceptance of what is. We can all relate to that. The isness, if you will, of our reality. My personal journey has been to accept what is, irregardless of my feelings and thoughts of it. Acceptance of the perfection that I am and others. I was raised as a Christian in a Baptist church in Detroit, Michigan, and learned early on to export the idea of God to a place far, far away from where I stood. To me, God was from heaven, a destination I could arrive at if I believed or did certain things. The place where I stand today, I see a piece of heaven in everything and everyone. And I feel empowered that each of us truly have the power to manifest heaven on this earth with love. Thank you. Thank you.
For all of us. Mary, how about you?
Well, I guess I got the microphone. So, well, I was going to describe the path that I took to get to where I am today, which is certainly not the end of my path or my journey. I grew up in a fairly progressive Presbyterian church in Los Angeles, and my grandfather was a Presbyterian minister, and later worked for the World Council of Churches, whose goal was to promote unity and peace in the world. And so I think those ideas were a foundation for my father and then again for me. My family was very active in our church. I participated in youth groups the whole time I was growing up, and my parents were involved in groups, and we did things with the other families and camping and that sort of thing. And my closest friends were those friends. So that was really my world. And then I went away to college, and I went up to the Bay Area, and I tried to find a church that meant the same thing to me as the one I had been in. And I found everything was so different. Everything was rigid. Everything was prescribed and dictated. And I went to church after church and finally kind of just gave up the effort because I felt, well, there's just really nothing for me out there. And then I began searching for other spiritual inspiration, different philosophers and thinkers and religious leaders. Thought about God. I remember studying cosmic consciousness and meditation, and all those were part of my search. And over the years, I had experiences that I think brought me closer to God than anything else had. And that was, the first one was when I was 11. My mother had died from cancer, and I was devastated. I was totally alone and felt that I couldn't go on. I became very depressed. And one night, I woke up and I felt a glow. I saw a glow in the room and felt this presence, the comforting presence of my mother. And she said, "I'm not far, and I'll always be with you, and you could go on." And that sense has never left me. All my life I felt that the distance that separates us isn't what I had imagined, wherever heaven I thought was. And so then later on, I had another experience that was different. I was about 15, and I was camping with my family in Yosemite, and I had climbed up on a huge boulder, and I was looking at the various things around me and feeling the warmth of the stone and the pine scent in the air, and I started focusing on some ants that were crawling along the boulder, and they were working together and helping the ones that were injured and helping to carry things, and I just became completely immersed in it. And all of a sudden, I was just struck with this incredible sense of awe, and I kind of felt like I lost consciousness, and I came back, and I felt like I had an inexplicable experience that, again, would be something that remained with me for the rest of my life. I knew it had something to do with God, but I was young, and it was not what I had ever experienced before. And later, in various times in my life, I had other experiences. Frank and I, my husband, and I took a long sailing trip, and when we were sailing over long distances, we would sail overnight, and I would be on watch, and he would be below decks, and we would see no light from any cities or anything nearby. The only thing we would see would be the brilliant starlight up in the sky, especially when there was no full moon, and the wake of the boat and the sea creatures moving around the boat. And this one particular night were created phosphorescent trails, and the awesome of the beauty and the complexity of all those things coming together. It just, again, was another extremely powerful experience. that is still with me today. And then, I had a number of other kinds of things. Once at Machu Picchu, and when I was diving, scuba diving, to see all the creatures under the, in the sea, and how most of the life that I knew wasn't above above the ocean. And I guess what these experiences were to me were the touch, the connection with the oneness and the fullness of whatever is God, and the belief in the all-encompassing love are the two things that I feel about God. And I feel that my journey is still continuing. I am beginning to research more and more, and so I have to say that I found Aldea, and that was one of the greatest blessings of my life, to find people who were like-minded searchers and seekers, and the love and the support from this community has been so helpful in me trying to find God and my spiritual grounding. So, that's...
Thank you so much. I'm feeling this. I hope everybody in the room can kind of feel how the energy is filling. It's Matt. Yes, wonderful. Thank you, Glenn.
Hi. Well, I don't have anything prepared. So, I grew up in a conservative Jewish family, and the religion was not, there was nothing spiritual for me. There was lots of rules. We were taught how to read Hebrew so that we could get a bar mitzvah, but nobody ever taught us what it meant. So I had a lot of cynicism, I think, when I was younger. And just like I have nothing prepared, my style was to be a rebel. So probably when I was younger, I didn't give a lot of thought to it. But my life was very informed by the fact that my mom died when I was 2. So loss was a huge issue for me. So when I first got up here, I thought, well, I'm going to talk about the story I'm still going to talk about, which is a frightening, negative sort of a story to begin with. But then I thought, well, before I do that, I need to talk about the positive aspect of my spiritual experience. Well, so first of all, I don't know what God is. All I know is that I know more about what I don't think he is. I don't think he's this guy that sits up in the heavens, and every fall he decides whether I'm written in the book of life or the book of death. The idea that we make amends to people during that time, I think I should make amends to people every day if I do something that requires it, right? I should live that. And my beliefs are sort of a bunch of contradictions. So that's what I'm aware of. But I find God in nature a lot, and in the awe and just the beauty and the power and the peace and the simplicity and the complexity of nature. And particularly, I guess, in mountains and in trees. So when I first came out here, it was an adaptation, a totally different kind of trees. Where's all my trees? And my wife and I met, and we spent a lot of our younger years backpacking and hiking in the mountains, and so we had just a deep connection to the earth and to the trees and the flowers. But some of the things I've read about God, they talk about they talk about living beings, all living beings. But for me, it's even more than that. I mean, I think the rocks have God in them and have their own, I don't know if consciousness is the right word, but something special. And I think I most relate to Einstein's quote that it's just not possible to describe it in words, that the very process of thinking is just such a limiting thing that we do. But, oh boy, I didn't think it was getting emotional. It was about 20 years ago, I think, that my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so she had a lung lumpectomy surgery, and that was scary. And then 2 weeks later, we sat down with the doctor, and he said, we didn't get safe margins. I didn't even know what that was, but what it meant is that she had to go back into surgery again. And I just remember feeling very alone and very frightened. And I just went for this walk in the woods and I prayed. Okay, so why would somebody like me pray, right? But I didn't pray that I would get what I wanted. I just prayed. I don't even know how to describe it. That what would happen is what should happen, and that Mary would not suffer. I was sobbing. It was deeply emotional, and then there was just this shift, this experience, and I came out of the woods feeling rooted, solid, like whatever happens will be okay, I'll be okay, hopefully Mary will be okay. And she was. But then we went through another experience of cancer surgeries during COVID. And the first one led to life-threatening infections, so then she had 2 more surgeries. And the last surgery was supposed to be an hour and a half. And it was like at 3 hours, I was really frightened again. Because you're waiting for that call from the doctor because he's not going to come see you. And then all hell broke loose next door, and the alarms are going off, and the doctors are running in, and this person dies. And then this poor woman is out in the hallway sobbing. And, this whole cycle of death and life and how that happens. And then, I don't know if it was 11 or not, but at some point, her alarm went off. That the doctor did call, and Mary was all right. But, just that whole process of life and death and having it so close and going through it, of experiencing that connectedness, I guess, is what I would say happened in the woods, which I think is a lot of what you were reading and talking about. Yeah. So I'm a contradiction, right? I don't believe in somebody up there, but I pray. I like candles, I pray. I guess that's enough.
Thank you guys so much. I wish and I hope you can feel what's up here, because with everyone expressing from their heart and what they feel and their experiences, everything is just filled with this almost tangible energy of love, which is really my experience of the divine came. And I know we're running late, so I'll be really quick. When my mom was dying, she was dying of cancer, and this was back in 2007, and she was at my sister's in Virginia, and I went back there to help my sister with her. And she wasn't afraid at all. As a matter of fact, she would wash in and out of being here and kind of not being here, that type of thing. And then she said to my sister and I am so excited. I'm so excited for what's going to come. She said, I don't know what it is, but it's this great adventure. And so we were just, and she was an Episcopal, she was, kind of by the book kind of person, but she was having these experiences that were not at all by the book. And I remember one day when she was sleeping and I was just sitting in the room with her and had my eyes closed. And I felt the room fill with indescribable love. And I thought, okay, this is what it is. This is what it is. And so, again, I love everything Mary, Tarell, Glenn said, because what we're talking about is impossible to pin down, but we know it when we feel it. The connectedness to everything. The God is everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The loving that we share among us is that. And so I thank you all so much for being here. And don't run away unless you want to, because we have some questions that we would like folks to, if they want to hang out and discuss among themselves, your little small groups, to say, what does this mean to you? And what are some experiences that you have had that represent that? So again, I thank you all so much for being here today. I thank Mary, Tarell, and Glenn. Thank you so much for sharing your hearts. And okay. Ding.